Hi everyone, today we're going to solve quadratic equations, still to be continued, using a different method, using roots method. And first let's kind of like refresh our memories on how to simplify square roots. So first we have square root of 49, which is just 7, but it could be positive 7 or negative 7. Because positive 7 times 7 is 49, and negative 7 times negative 7 is also 49. So here we have 2 square root of 44, which will be 2 times 12, which is 24. And then we have square root of 45, which cannot be simplified regular way, but I can rewrite it as factors of 9 times 5. And one of the factors, 9, is a number that we can actually find the square root. And square root of 9 is 3, but square root of 5 is irrational, so we're going to leave it like that. Alright, so we have a refresher. So now let's find out which equations can be actually solved by taking the square roots only. And only the equations of the form of ax squared plus c equals 0 can be solved by taking square roots. So we are missing the b term, so we're missing the mirror term of the equation. So we have the first term and the last term. And we can using square root properties. So if we have x squared equals some number n, we can take the square root of it, and that will give me positive and negative square root of n. So we're taking the square root of both sides. Steps to solve it. Step number 1, and follow it, always refer to this as needed, is isolate x squared on one side. Then take the square root of both sides, simplify the radical, and remember, you always get a negative and a positive answer, so we're going to use plus and minus symbol together. And with negative square roots, we're going to use imaginary number I to simplify answers. So let's look at the first example. X squared minus 64 is equal to 0. So it's set to 0 like in the previous lesson, but we don't want that here really. So what we're going to do, we're going to add 64 to both sides and solve it like regular equation from algebra 1. So that will give me x squared is equal to 64. At this point, I can take the square root of both sides, and I will get x is equal to positive and negative 8. Alright, let's look at the next example. Isolate x squared first. So we're going to subtract 8 first. So I have 7x squared is equal to 7. I'm going to divide by 7 to get x squared alone, and I get x squared is equal to 1. And then I'm going to take the square root, and square root of 1 is itself, but it's going to be positive or negative 1. So remember to always include positive and negative answer. Alright, let's look at the third example. Subtracting 14 from both sides. I get x squared is equal to negative 13. Take the square root of both sides. And here I don't have x squared anymore. I have positive and negative, and I have a problem because now I'm taking the square root of a negative number, which tells me I'm going to have imaginary number there, and I can rewrite it as positive and negative square root of negative 1 times square root of 13. And I know that square root of negative 1 turns into I, so now I have positive and negative square root of 13 times I. I is not under the square root, it's actually next to it. All right, let's look at some more examples. If you're ready to solve them on your own, please do so. Pause the video and solve the next 3 examples on your own. When you're ready to check your answers, unpause it, and but I will continue on. All right, so subtracting 5, so I get negative 81x squared is equal to 21 minus 5 is 16. I'm going to divide, and I'm not going to write each step at this point. I'm just going to say it, but I'm going to write down the answer. So I'm going to divide by negative 81, which gives me negative 16 over 81. And I'm going to take the square root. And I will get x is equal to positive and negative square root of negative 1 times square root of 16 over 81, which will give me, if I take the square root of 16 and 81, that would give me 4 over 9. Square root of negative 1 is I. Right, let's subtract 147. So I get negative 144. Divide by 9. I get negative 144 over 9. I'm going to take the square root. X equals positive and negative. Square root of 144 is 12. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of negative 1 is I. Adding 9. So when I divide both sides by 2, I get 32. Take the square root. So x equals positive and negative square root of 32. But I can simplify square root of 32 and rewrite it as 16 times 2. And square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 2 is irrational. So it's positive and negative 4 square root of 2. Alright, this one is for you. Look at equation A, look at equation B, and answer the following questions. Which of the equations below can be solved by square roots, and how would you solve the other equation? Explain your reasoning, give the solution to both equations. Just take a look at both of them, try to solve them, and we're going to discuss them in class, in our next class.